I love this mug.
So, I am making this video to say that it is okay. It is okay to make art that has a more prominent Japanese influence.
Gee,
Number one, because people can draw what they want. You should let people draw what they want. And if you don't like a specific person's artwork,
it takes 1 second to close your eyes.
It takes 2 seconds to look away.
and it takes zero effort to not discourage them in their art.
It just grinds my gears whenever I see when I see people discouraging younger artists just because they use a more Japanese influenced art style. And
give them a break. They're still starting.
And even if you're not starting and you have a more Japanese art style, it's okay. It takes zero effort
to close your mouth. It takes zero effort.
And another reason why it's okay is because your art might also be influenced by Japanese people, by Japanese artworks. Your art might also be influenced by it simply because you saw it. You can't just draw. You can't draw and then say, oh,
this illustration was made in the superior American style with zero influence.
Because chances are those artists which you take, those American or European or other nationality which isn't Japan, those artists who you take inspiration from were also influenced by Japanese artists. And you are too. Not just because you take influence from artists who have influence from Japanese artists, but because you have seen Japanese art yourself.
And that means that you take a Japanese influence whether you like it or not. It is an unconscious thing to take influence, though there is a more conscious approach of taking influence from a specific artwork or a specific movement of artworks. There is also that unconscious influence of Japanese artworks inside your mind simply because you saw it.
Oh my gosh, I sound mean. I'm so sorry. But
I felt like that had to be said, even if it's been said by 1 million other people.
And another thing is that being influenced by Japanese artworks is nothing to be ashamed of. It's nothing to be sad about, and it doesn't make you less original. The very essence, what makes art is taking influence from everything around you. A good artist steals. And if that artist steals from a Japanese artist, then that's okay. The popularization of line art itself is a Japanese thing. Line art didn't really exist much in European art before the 1900s when Japan opened itself to Europe. One of the most influential artists of our time have actually taken influence directly from Japan. There was even an entire art period which consisted of art which was influenced by Japan. The Art Nouveau. Time for a history lesson. Art History 101. Japanese art from the 17th century to the 19th century mostly consisted of wood blocks and prints, which consisted which were made in the ukiyo-e art style, which is really popular. I'm sure you're familiar with the Great Wave and various other artworks. The Great Wave is one of my favorites because it's one of the most popular ones, but I love the Great Wave was made in the ukiyo-e art style. And not just that, but within the ukiyo-e art style also consisted a series of artworks made by Japanese artists called the Jinga artworks. Jinga is a terminology used to describe Japanese artworks made in those centuries, which consisted mostly of women. So basically, artists' artworks whose subject matter were women. And it just so happened that in the 1850s, in the 1858, when Japan opened themselves for trade, and when they sold their artworks, that a majority, a big number of those artworks were Jinga. And when those Jinga artworks were sent to Europe, many artists started to take influence from it. As you know, the merchants, the people, they love Japanese art, they love Japanese things. You could even see Japanese artworks, Japanese artifacts and Japanese items being sold in the front of curiosity stores in Paris and in different parts of France. They were becoming more popularized, which is why in 1890, which roughly in 1890, the Art Nouveau period started because of the influence of Japanese artworks. If it weren't for the opening of Japan, if it weren't for these Japanese artworks, if it weren't for the Jinga artworks, we wouldn't have Art Nouveau. Now, how do these things correlate with each other? Well, good question, dear viewer. These things correlate with each other because of the fact that their subject matter consisted of women, because of the fact that they all had line art, which was something that did not appear as often in European art until now. These two, specifically Jinga and Art Nouveau, both had women. Their subject matter was mostly women. They both use a limited array of colors. They both used a color palette, which gave them a specific feel, which gave them a specific undertone, which made them all seem like they were made by the same artist, in the same period. And because of this, many great artists and many great artworks were produced, like The Kiss by Gustav Klimt, the portrait of Adele, a really popular painting that was made during the Art Nouveau period, was made because of the influences of Japanese women as subject matter, because of the intricate Japanese line art, because of these Japanese influences. We wouldn't have Gustav Klimt and Alphonse Mucha making his prints of women, making his prints of the zodiac. We wouldn't have these things. We wouldn't have these artworks made by Gustav Klimt, by Alphonse Mucha, and by so many different artists if it weren't for that Japanese influence. So in conclusion, it is okay to have Japanese influenced artworks or to draw in a more Japanese style because of number one, draw what you want, and number two, because you'll everyone in some degree all artworks were influenced by these Japanese artworks. And number three, because of if it weren't for Japan, you wouldn't have had all these artists around you, all of these beautiful artworks. We wouldn't have had animation if it weren't for Japan and if it weren't for their artworks. So, thank you for watching this video. It was scripted, but not as much. I basically had some keywords put on my laptop, and I just went with the flow. So I hope you like this video. Thank you so much for watching.